segmentos. La siguiente intervención, recuerden que se llevará a cabo en inglés. Las personas que requieran de traducción simultánea pueden solicitar sus equipos al ingresar al salón. Siempre están las cabinas con los equipos de traducción. Y antes de continuar, quiero invitarlos a responder esta breve encuesta que pueden llenar, diligenciar, escaneando este código QR. Para nosotros es muy importante, es una encuesta de satisfacción. ¿Qué debemos mejorar? Es importante su opinión y algunas otras inquietudes que encontrarán escaneando este código. Pueden hacerlo de manera inmediata. Muy bien, como veo que algunos están saliendo a recoger sus equipos, lo importante es que cuando volvamos, como ya tendremos los dos conferencistas en auditorio, por favor lo hagamos con todo el silencio posible. Vamos a invitar al escenario a Rajneesh Tingal, secretario adjunto del Departamento de Productos Farmacéuticos del Gobierno de la India, y su asesor, Sumit Garg. Recibámoslos, por favor, con un aplauso.
Very good morning to all of you. I'm Rajneesh Tingal, Joint Secretary in the Department of Pharmaceuticals, Government of India, and along with me is my colleague, Dr. Sumit Garg, Deputy Secretary in the department. We'll be making a short presentation on behalf of the department. Before that, I'd like to thank the organizers and especially Ms. Mariana Sarastri, Director, Pharma Bureau of National Association of Entrepreneurship, Colombia, for inviting us to this 28th edition of the Health Forum to this beautiful city and with the beautiful people of this city of Katyana. The topic of the session is the strength of the pharmaceuticals and vaccine production sector in India. But as our introductions did say, we are not from the industry nor from the industry association, but from the government sector. So we'd like to give a short overview what government per se and what as the Department of Pharmaceuticals we are doing for the pharma sector. Before we go, I'll just like to trace the history of the pharma sector in the country. Pharmaceuticals sector grew just immediately after the independence. India did get independence in 1947. And initially, government did set up large pharma companies. Hello. Yeah. So this was the beginning where basically government did come forward to set up the companies, and government also took steps to set up academic institutions as well as the R&D institutions to develop the human potential for growth of the sector. And with the time and the entrepreneur skills of the citizens of India, private pharma sector did develop very well in the country and did take over the government companies so as to meet the requirement not only for the country but for the world as such. And the data will speak as we go to the next slide. We are basically called the pharmacy of the world, and this data will speak for that. Like the country is ranked #1 in the world as the largest supplier of the low-cost generic vaccines as well as the HIV medicines. We are the #2 in the world with the US FDA-approved companies outside of US. And in terms of volume of the pharma products which are being supplied, we are #3. So these figures did speak quite well, but I'll still like to go back to that what as the department we did do and how could we go to that these figures. And as such, so just to tell you that we are from the Department of Pharmaceuticals, which is a department different from Department of Health. Normally, pharmaceuticals is part of the health, but in India, it's a separate department. And this department has a mandate to promote the industry as well as to provide quality, affordable medicines to the citizens of the country. So we have a dual mandate for the promotion of the industry, and as part of that mandate, so we have flown 10,000 miles from India just to promote the Indian industry, but also to ensure that the citizens of the country do get affordable medicines. Just to, as regard the promotion of industry, what I like to say that, of course, industry is in private sector and it's thriving. It's thriving, but government role in this growth of the pharma industry is forming a vision for the sector, preparing policy guidelines, making number of schemes and implementation of those schemes, which basically led to the growth of these companies. So like we have number of schemes which basically do promote pharma industries. These schemes, some recent schemes do include where basically production-linked incentive scheme, where huge incentive is given on the production of the pharma products. Country has also set up pharma parks where basically some basic infrastructure is provided and incentive is given to the companies. We have basically done a lot of work in reducing regulatory framework and making it more transparent, more predictable, more insurable, and of course the figures do speak. Even in the World Bank ease of doing ranking, the country has improved recently from the, say, in 2018 we were in the range of 140s, and the recent rank is about country is in the 62 or 63 third rank. Even we do promote foreign direct investments, which this slide do show that FDI is encouraged. Even pharma sector, 100% FDI is basically automatically approved in case of greenfield companies, and in case of brownfield is 74% to the automatic route, and after that, beyond 74%, basically approval of the government is required. So these, and the figures as indicates that we have received about 18 billions of foreign direct investment in the country in this century. This is one part about the industry per se, but as I did say that our mandate is also to ensure that citizens of the country do get affordable medicines. And we are basically taking a number of steps in that regard. Drugs in the country are regulated, prices of drugs are regulated, a part of that sector. As per the WHO list of essential medicines, which basically our Ministry of Health subsequently approves. So those drugs which are essential, those prices are basically controlled. But that is just a small sector, only 17–18% sector, drug sector is regulated. Remaining 82% basically, there's no drug control, price control per se, and companies are free to basically fix the prices of those drugs. Of course, there are some restrictions on after fixing the price, how much enhancement they can do. I'll also like to mention about a scheme, a flagship scheme, which basically we want to promote and we want to take to other countries, where basically government has incentivized entrepreneurs, where basically generic drug stores are set up all over the country. About, say, in this scheme, about more than 8,000 stores have been opened where generic drugs are sold. So just to spread basically the pharmacy network, as well as to provide the citizens quality and affordable medicines. And even the country has recently come with the world's largest health insurance program, which covers about 500 million people, low-income people of the country, which under this health insurance scheme, secondary and tertiary healthcare is provided free of cost to about this 500 million people in all the country. It's a sector where basically we do export to all over the world, where we say to top 25 destinations, but we do export pharma products to all over the world. is a positive, basically balance, and we get about 11 is the trade surplus in the pharma sector. And there's a lot of job created as direct as well as the indirect. And the range is wide. Range is wide, and our size of the market is presently 50 billion, which we hope that it will enhance to about 130 billion by 2030. Just to again show the achievements of the industry, about 60% of the global vaccines in the world are produced in India. About 90% of the WHO demand for measles vaccines and about 40 to 70% demand for the DPT and BCG vaccines are met by India. And as regards the pharma, about 25% of the medicines sold in UK are produced in India, and about 40% of the pills in US are basically sold from India. And basically, India did help in fighting the HIV virus in African continent. Since also, as we did mention, about 60% of the global vaccine requirement we do meet, and more than 70% of the WHO requirement we do meet. But like we did come to age at the time of COVID, and COVID vaccines, basically, we are proud to say that the country just didn't succeed in vaccinating all its population. So about 2 billion dosages have been given in the country. And in addition, we have exported 230 million COVID vaccines to about 97 countries. Some of it is on gratis and some is on commercial basis. And it's not that we did get the technology from outside and we did produce those vaccines. We basically were, with our R&D institutes, we were successful in getting some COVID vaccines basically developed in the country itself. As of now in India, 9 different vaccines have been basically are in use and approved by our regulator. These include Covishield, Covaxin, Sputnik V and Sputnik Light, and vaccines some developed in India by Zydus Cadila, Biological E Limited. So there are 9 different, there's a whole arena of COVID vaccines which are being produced in the country and which are being also exported outside. In this regard, maybe with the COVID, supply of the COVID vaccines, there's another thing which is basically a thing which is worthy to mention here. We did develop a online platform where all COVID vaccine from the production to distribution to its final application to even issuance of the certificate and even reporting of the adverse effects, etc., all have been digitized on a single platform, which is simple to use. And in country, all of us have a digital vaccination certificate. So this is a basically like India already have this IT sector is has grown up so that we have been able to develop this COVID platform, which has succeeded quite well in application of the COVID vaccines. Some of the players are just for the sake of mentioning, have been indicated here, but I'd like to draw your attention to the right-hand corner, where we indicate that out of the total top 20 generic companies in the world, 8 are Indian. Sun Pharma, Aurobindo, Cipla, Dr. Reddy's, Lupin, Intas, Zydus, Glenmark, and few of these are, of course, in Colombia too. Another thing, in addition to these medicines, I'd like to highlight our own traditional medicines and our own traditional medicinal system, which is called Ayush. Ayush, where it's Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, Siddha, and homeopathy. So this bundle of traditional medicinal system is being basically has been practiced in the country for quite long. And these are not just for the treatment of the diseases, but for the holistic basically living of life. And basically we are quite eager to take this Ayush all over the world. As has been recently done in case of yoga, basically we intend to take Ayush all over the world. And recently WHO has set up the first and the only global center for traditional medicines in India and at Jamnagar in Gujarat state. And through this center, basically, we will take this knowledge of our traditional medicines in India to all over the world, and we can also basically take whatever good is available in the world, and that can be utilized in India too. Now, I'll request my colleagues, Sumit, to take it further.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I'll just to give some perspective, which my senior colleague has already spoken. So 1947, we become independent. Then we start importing drugs. Then the government itself starts corporations where we manufacture drugs. Slowly, our private sector becomes confident. They start manufacturing. Sorry, it works, okay. So the government is now closing down the corporations because they are no more competitive. So our private sector is quite robust. They are not only meeting the needs of the Indian population, they are meeting the needs of the global population at large. So I'll take you through some slides on the global trade. So I'll just move closer to the slide, yes. So this is the global trade done by India in 2021. So you can see on the left side of the pie chart, much of the exports done by India are in the formulations, which are the final drug formulation medicines, 73%. And then my colleague also spoke about the traditional medicine, which is Ayush. We are also exporting Ayush, but that figure is very minuscule, 2%. Then vaccines, 4%, and the bulk drugs, which we call as the raw materials to the finished formulations. So we are exporting those bulk drugs or the active pharmaceutical ingredients as well. So on the right side, if you see, you can see the region-wise export share of India. Much of the exports are going into the North American region, which is shown as NAFTA region. I think it is 34%. And then it's a highly regulated market, you all are aware. And you have 17% of exports moving to European region, 6% comes to Latin American region. That's the broad picture. So coming down to the Latin American region, our largest trading partner is Brazil, then Peru, Chile, and then we have Colombia. Some facts we have put, some figures. Pharma exports to Colombia in FY20 was 96 million. FY21, it rose to 106 million, and then 150 million in the last year. So all these, primarily, these exports are in the form of generic drugs. So we are exporting generics to most of the countries which are highly safe and cost-effective drugs. Then we also did some short study on the market in Colombia. The overall pharma market in Colombia, which stands at 4.6 billion, and the generic market is around 1.9 billion. So we did this only to see whether if there is any scope to further enhance the collaboration in generic drugs in Colombia. We'll be happy to collaborate with the Colombian government on that front. So I put some facts based on some studies done by various sources. So what India offers to other countries is primarily two things. One is you have access to medicines because you are producing cost-effective and safe drugs. So that primarily enhances the access to medicines, medicines which you were not able to get. You can see examples of South Africa. So the accessibility to medicines increased when we started producing generic drugs, and also the affordability. On this slide, I'll show you how the excess of these drugs increased. You can see generics, they represent 60 to 80% of all medicines by volume. They are cost effective, and you can see in the key markets, 60 to 80% share is in the generic market drugs. So 90% plus in US, 80% in Australia, 90+% in India. So Indian market is completely, our healthcare system depends on the generic drugs. So here the ability of the Indian manufacturers, which we have seen in the past, is the scale and the ability, the scale with which they can manufacture at a speed. We saw it during the pandemic also. We were able to manufacture the drug called remdesivir, then we had tocilizumab, then the vaccines. We could produce all these drugs at a very great speed to meet the demand of the population. So I'll just read out some simple facts, which again, all these are based on some studies conducted by various sources. Generic HIV therapies have helped increase treatment coverage threefold since 2010 in Eastern and Southern Africa. Within a year of launch of generic antivirals for hepatitis C, the number of people who initiated treatment rose by 50%. So that is another positive you see out of all these developments. Over a decade, which is 2006 to 16, therapy volume in 7 therapy areas doubled in Europe, which is, again, we talk about the access to drugs. So in India, if we talk about India, the per person disease burden dropped by 36% between 1990 and 2016. Similarly, we have some figures which also mention that the disease burden also dropped down significantly in Africa. So this is basically the access part, but the more interesting slide is the next one, which also talks about affordability. Yesterday, we had a very important comment made by our KPMG colleague. I think she would be here. And she mentioned that it is always important for the governments to continuously invest in healthcare systems. So we should be investing, and the amounts should increase every year. And more so because we have realized after this pandemic, the investments in healthcare system, public healthcare system should increase. But there I have a point. So as a government, you always have to optimize your budgets. You cannot be spending your entire budget amount only on one area, which is public healthcare. The other areas are also important. So when you think about optimizing your healthcare budgets, so I think generic drugs, they form an important element of how you should be optimizing your healthcare bills or the public health expenditure. So these are again based on some studies how some of the governments have been able to save a lot of public expenditure by using the generic drugs. So I mentioned in my previous slide that India's largest exporting partner is US and then followed by EU. So patients I'll just read out again. So patients in the healthcare system in US, they saved approximately 313 billion in 2019 through the use of generic drugs, and then 2.2 billion through the use of biosimilar medicines. So biosimilars are biological-based drugs, and generics, we can say that these are chemical-based drugs. So over the last decade, savings add up to 2.2 trillion and USD 4.5 billion through the use of generics and biosimilars, respectively. These are the savings the government has by use of these drugs. So in Europe, you have similarly 8.4 billions of savings, then a typical example of some drug called granulocyte colony-stimulating factor. The medicine class, which uses the longest biosimilars, again, the utility of this drug has shown a lot of savings in the European continent. So now, okay, so here I would like to appreciate the Embassy of Colombia in India and the government agency Pro-Colombia. So they have been actively been in touch with the Indian government in New Delhi. So we have been talking, we have been just brainstorming over the areas of cooperation which we can have between both the governments. So few areas which we could highlight, although this is a work in progress, this is not final. So one is the market access to safe and affordable drugs. I've already mentioned that how Indian drugs can help you save your expenditure bills. So one area could be how to trade more in the generic drugs and how you can increase your share of generic drugs in your public system, healthcare system. The second is how the private industry in India can collaborate with the industry in Colombia. So they need to talk, and whatever mutual interest they have, we can, as a government, we can facilitate. Although it will be a private decision, so we cannot force any private industry, but yes, definitely will facilitate. If there is any interest from the Indian side, if there is any interest from the Colombian side, we are always there to help and facilitate. So this is industry to industry collaboration. On the third aspect in which we are trying to have some collaboration is the academics and research. So my boss, he handles the academics and research part in the ministry. So the Ministry of External Affairs of India, they run a program called ITEC program, which is Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation, which is for the developing countries. So in this program, we basically give scholarships to the foreign students so that they come in India, they study there in various fields. It can be, so one of the fields can be pharmaceutical research also. So in India, we have 7 national institutes which are called National Institutes of Pharmaceutical Education and Research. These are the institutes of national importance where we offer courses at master's and doctorate level in various streams of pharmaceutical sciences. In fact, just to quote one of the NIPers, we call them NIPers. So one of the NIPer at Mohali has run various courses for more than 630 participants from 70 countries. So this is again a collaborative program, and we can explore more collaboration with the Colombian government here. So this is again a work in progress. I think we have some plans to meet some university professors tomorrow. We'll be flying back to Bogota today. So yes, this is the last slide. I like this slide the most. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.